In the run-up for the 2026 Swedish general election to the Riksdag, various organizations carry out opinion polling to gauge voting intention in Sweden. The date range for these opinion polls are from the 2022 Swedish general election, held on September 11, to the present day. The next election is scheduled for September 13, 2026. Background: the Swedish Social Democratic Party came back to power after the 2014 Swedish general election, with the Green Party taking part in Stefan Löfven's coalition government. Retained the position as the largest parliamentary party after the 2018 general election, despite losing 13 seats in comparison with the previous election. The election resulted in a hung parliament, as neither the Red Greens nor the Alliance had enough seats to form a government, and the Sweden Democrats, which had been subject to a cordon sanitaire by all other parties as an anti-immigration or far-right party, won 62 seats. Ulf Kristersson, the leader of the moderate party, was given the task of forming the government and opened up to SD after previously ruling out an alliance with them upon assuming the party leadership in 2017 and during the 2018 election campaign. In turn, the Centre Party and Liberals declined to back his candidacy, as Kristersson wanted SD to take part in the government. Löfven was later given the task, although he also failed to form a government. Speaker of the Riksdag, Andreas Norlin, set another vote to be held in January, and Löfven formed a deal between SMP, CL, and the Left Party. Löfven was re-elected on January 18, 2019 with S and MP voting in favour, while CL and V abstained. Löfven's government. The first confirmed case of COVID-19 in Sweden became known on January 31, 2020. The government later ordered 100,000 people a week to be tested in order to curb the spread of the disease. With insufficient healthcare resources and unclear responsibilities, the goal was not met. In contrast to the World Health Organization, the government did not recommend the use of face masks during the COVID-19 pandemic. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the government did not impose national lockdowns but rather limits on the number of people that are allowed to meet at public places. In December 2019, Kristersson held a meeting with SD leader Jimmy Åkesson, and said that he would cooperate with them in the Riksdag. According to Ann-Kathrine Jungar of Södertörn University, this put Sweden in line with several other European countries in which centre-right and radical right parties cooperate. In August 2020, the right-wing opposition criticized the Löfven government for a perceived failure to deal with rising crime including gun violence, which Kristersson called a second pandemic. During his premiership, Löfven abolished the austerity tax, a top tax rate of 5% points for incomes above €6,000 a month, as was requested by the then Liberals leader Jan Björklund in turn for allowing his premiership. V opposed this move and later also stated it would initiate a vote of no confidence due to the government's policies the party saw as unacceptable. In 2021, S proposed to abolish rent controls for new housing. V responded by initiating a vote of no confidence against the government. Löfven's government was dismissed on June 21, 2021, only S and MP voted in favour of his government. After the dismissal, Nyamko Sabuni, the new leader of the Liberals, stated that her party would not cooperate with S anymore. Speaker Norlin proposed Löfven to form a government, and on July 7 the government was re-established. A month later, Löfven announced that he would step down as leader of S and as Prime Minister in autumn of 2021. Following the disappointing results in the 2018 general election that once again relegated the party to the opposition and saw the dismissal of the centre-right alliance, M broke the cordon sanitaire in Swedish politics and opened up to SD. By autumn 2021, the right-wing opposition formed an informal agreement for a future MKD government headed by Kristersson of the Moderate Party as Prime Minister with the external support of L and SD. Andersson's government. The Social Democrats held a party congress on November 4, 2021, in order to elect a new leader. Former Minister for Finance, Magdalena Andersson, succeeded Löfven as the leader of the party. Speaker Norlund proposed Andersson to form a government, and after securing a deal with V, Andersson was elected as Prime Minister on November 24. MP pulled out of confidence and supply for her government, which led to Andersson's resignation 7 hours after her election as Prime Minister. MP quit the government due to the passage of the opposition's budget in place of that of the government. Speaker Norlund nominated Andersson again, and on November 29 she was re-elected with 101 votes in favor and 75 abstentions. Considering that MP did not vote in favor of the government, the Andersson cabinet would be only composed of members of S heading into the 2022 general election. Andersson's leadership moved the Social Democrats to the left after the publication of a May 2021 party report, Distributional Policies for Equality and Fairness, which criticized the rising inequalities that emerged from political decisions by previous left and right governments. Following the beginning of the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine, Andersson's government applied with Finland to join NATO on May 18, 2022, despite the historical opposition of Social Democrats to NATO. During the vote in the Riksdag, only MP and V voted against joining NATO. In July the government signed the accession protocol in order to join NATO. Andersson's government received high approval ratings. Electoral system. The Riksdag is made up of 349 seats, and all are elected through open list, proportional representation on multi-member party lists. Sweden has the distinction of having elections on a fixed date with a parliamentary system in which early elections can be called. In the latter case, the newly elected legislature would serve the remainder of the 4-year term begun by the previous legislature. Elections are organized on the second Sunday of September every 4 years, at the same time as the municipal and regional elections. Each of the 29 constituencies has a set number of parliamentarians that is divided through constituency results to ensure regional representation. The other members of parliament are then elected through a proportional balancing, to ensure that the numbers of elected MPs for the various parties accurately represent the votes of the electorate. The Swedish Constitution 1ch4 says that the Riksdag is responsible for taxation and making laws, and 1ch6 says that the government is held responsible to the Riksdag. This means that Sweden has parliamentarism in a constitutional monarchy, ensuring that the government is responsible to the people's representatives. A minimum of 4% of the national vote, or alternatively 12% or more within a constituency, is required for a party to enter the Riksdag. Were the latter to occur, the party only gains representation within that constituency's seat share. Of the 349 seats, 310 are elected within the 29 constituencies. The remainder are apportioned nationally as leveling seats to ensure a proportional result. Were a party to win more constituencies than it is entitled to overall, a redistribution of constituency seats may occur to reduce the number of constituency seats won by that party. In Swedish elections, voters may openly pick up several party-specific ballots, and then, in the voting booth, mark the ballot they chose. 2 election observers of the OSCE present at the 2018 general election criticized this system, saying that it could endanger ballot secrecy, and that they would look into the issue in the report that was to be published 8 weeks later. Election officials are responsible for party-specific ballot papers being present in the voting places for parties that have obtained more than 1% of the votes in the previous parliamentary election. A voter may write in the party name of choice on a blank ballot paper to cast a vote if there is no access to the desired party-specific ballot paper. Political parties. The table below lists political parties represented in the Riksdag after the 2018 general election. Pre-election composition. Campaign. Issues. After the beginning of the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine, campaign issues shifted towards the NATO accession of Sweden, as well as the neighboring Finland. A militarily non-aligned country, opinion polls after the invasion had showed that a majority of respondents supported the accession of Sweden into NATO for the first time. The Swedish Social Democratic Party and Sweden Democrats, who had historically favored neutrality, revised their stance on the issue and stated their support for joining NATO. The Green Party remained opposed, while the Left Party stated that they would opt for a referendum on the subject. Crime was a key campaign issue. Issues regarding immigration also played a key role during the campaign period, and issues related to gang crime were talked about the most. Additionally, issues regarding energy, healthcare, law and order, education, economy, and environment were also talked about during the campaign period. Party campaigns. The Social Democrats published their election manifesto, in which the party had promised to tackle issues regarding crime, welfare, climate, green industry, and rising prices. It had also called for automatic preschool for 3-year-old children. During their campaign, the Social Democrats voiced support for nuclear power. Anderson criticized the moderate party's proposal regarding property tax warnings. The moderate party stated that it would want to reduce immigration to the same levels as Denmark and Norway. Additionally, it would want to make asylum laws more restrictive and to abolish the track change system, which allows rejected asylum seekers to apply for work permits. Kristersson proposed that the state should set a price threshold for energy bills. The Sweden Democrats campaigned on lowering the asylum migration close to zero, as well as introducing longer prison sentences. Åkesson also stated his support for stricter work permits. In August, the Sweden Democrats surged in opinion polls due to their tough stance on crime and immigration, surpassing the moderate party. In August, Lööf stated that she would want the Centre Party to be part of a Social Democrat-led government. Lööf was later a target of attack by a former member of the Nordic Resistance Movement, a neo-Nazi political party. During the election campaign, the Left Party campaigned on taking back control over welfare and climate issues. Dagostar stated her support for investing in green technology and infrastructure, and also criticized the parties on the right. She also stated that the Left Party would work with parties on the left to form a government. The Christian Democrats campaigned on installing more security cameras and increasing funding and resources for the police in order to fight gang crime. Bush called for the reopening of Ringhal's nuclear power plant, as well as expanding water and wind production. The Liberals stated their support for more investments into solar, wind, and nuclear power. Additionally, the Liberals stated that they would want to lower taxes on electricity, especially VAT and excise taxes. In August 2022, there was an internal conflict among the Liberals regarding campaigning on a bus tour that would have included SD. Persson responded by stating that the four parties would visit a nuclear power plant together, and described it as hardly a big ideological question. There was also internal criticism regarding cooperating with SD on the budget. The Green Party campaigned on climate and social issues, including investment and expansion of rail/train transport in Sweden, and replacing fossil fuels and diesel with renewable fuels, as well as protecting free media and initiating a citizenship initiative system to allow in part for legislation proposed by citizens. Slogans. Debates. Opinion polls. Results. As of September 15, 2022, the results remained preliminary after a first tally was presented. The official results were announced about a week after the election, showing very minor changes. Voter demographics. Sveriges Television exit polling suggested the following demographic breakdown based on preliminary results to the nearest integer. Result by constituency. Seat distribution. Maps. Aftermath. Voting stations were opened from 8 o'clock to 2000 hours, and there were 7,772,120 Swedish nationals in total that had the right to vote in the 2022 general election. According to exit polls that were published by Sveriges Television and TV4, the bloc around the Swedish Social Democratic Party showed a tight lead against the bloc around the Moderate Party. It was also reported that the Sweden Democrats surpassed M in the amount of votes, and suggested that it could become the second largest parliamentary party. S also won more votes in comparison with the 2018 Swedish general election. Sweden's election authority stated that the bloc that composed of M, SD, Christian Democrats, and Liberals overtook the bloc around S by 1 to 3 seats during the counting of the preliminary results. The gap between the two blocs was around 50,000 votes. Ulf Kristersson, the M leader, stated that the results would be likely known by Wednesday, and he thanked his voters, while Jimmy Åkesson, the SD leader, stated that SD would play a central role in the power shift. Kristersson also said that a change in the numbers of seats is possible. As overseas and some postal votes were to be counted, the incumbent Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson stated that it is too close to call the election. Some analysts have seen the rise of the Nuance Party, mainly aimed at the country's Muslim population, as one of the causes of the losses in the left bloc. SD's election night vigil in Stockholm attracted controversy after the party refused to grant access to several foreign-language media and after the party's chief of staff Linus Bylund joked that he was looking forward to journalist rugby, where you push journalists around. The election vigil also attracted controversy after an SD candidate for the Stockholm municipal election proclaimed Helge Seger while raising her arm in an interview with far-right blog Samnytt, which is phonetically similar to Hell Seger, the Swedish translation of the Nazi Sieg Heil chant. The candidate subsequently told Expressen that she had aimed to provoke the media into over-interpretations before later telling Dagens Nyheter that she had misspoke and meant to say Seger Helge, which would translate to Victory Weekend. On September 13, Annie Lööf, the leader of the Centre Party, sent an internal email to the party's elected politicians in which she called the results for the party very disappointing and stated that SE's board would conduct an investigation into the party's campaign. 2 days later, Lööf announced her resignation as party leader. Andersson conceded on September 14, and announced her resignation as Prime Minister, paving the way for Kristersson to attempt to form a new government. Andersson called upon M, KD, and L to reject SD, and said she was open to a government with M that would exclude SD. Some liberals in particular have been wary of a government with SD. Renew Europe, the European parliamentary group of which L is part, has been critical of the Liberals being part of a government including SD. Despite the right-wing majority, no government had been formed by the opening of the newly elected Riksdag on September 26. Moderate party leaders raised concerns that SD would hold a disproportionate amount of influence over a new government, and would use the committee chairmanships allocated to them to block or delay government policy. On September 26, Andreas Norlin of the Moderate Party was re-elected as Speaker of the Riksdag by acclamation. The election of Julia Kronlid of the Sweden Democrats as second Deputy Speaker of the Riksdag required a second ballot after the first ballot fell 3 votes short of the required majority.